the NBA right now obviously kind of takes a back seat to the NCAA tournament, but there is some storylines that are going on. And obviously I want to start right here because the best team in basketball right now is the Boston Celtics. They seem to be the team that everybody's saying they should be hoisting that trophy. I know, look, Denver is the reigning champion, but the way that the Boston Celtics have been constructed, they seem to be the best team right now that can threaten for that title.
They absolutely do, Kirk. The Celtics have been on a roll all season, right. And I feel like if people are sleeping on them, and maybe like you, people will sleep on them for the next couple of weeks while they're just watching college basketball, the NBA will still be there when you get back. It'll be all right. Adam Silver might be a little bit alarmed at your framework. It's okay. The Celtics are, from the moment they added Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, and Porzingis has been banged up off and on this season, but everybody's believed, on paper at least, possibly best starting five in the league, possibly the best 1 through 6 in the league. And I don't think anything that's happened this season should dissuade us of that notion. And, we always go into a season feeling like the defending champ, unless something has befallen them. They lost a player, an injury happens. They're usually the benefit of the doubt team to win it again. This is one of those great years where we can look out at the West and say, you know what? It's really competitive, but the Nuggets are still the certain favorite in the West. But we've got this team looming in the East that not only is having a dominant season, they might be the only 60-plus win team in the NBA. Hell, they might get to 65. But they have the goods. They've got the requisite star power, the requisite scoring punch, and diversity of scoring options. They clearly have the requisite defense. They're a team that you can look at and say, I can't wait to see if, in fact, we get the matchup that we're expecting, Denver and Boston in the finals. I cannot wait to see how this plays out. And in part also because, look, the Celtics have been kind of lurking, looming, threatening to be this team for the last several years. And we forget how young Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum still are. But they've been together for so long and have made the finals. They've made conference finals multiple times that they almost feel like this team that people are suspicious of because they haven't broken through. And, they've never been more primed now to finally not only make the finals again, but potentially beat whoever it is across the way there for the championship.
Howard, there's a couple questions here on this one, but I'll start with the first part because the NBA has done a great job with their play-in, right? The play-in, right? Seeds 7, 8, 9, and 10. It almost feels like we're going to focus the next couple weeks in the Western Conference, that play-in 7, 8, 9, and 10 seeds. And maybe we are going to ignore what's been going on in Oklahoma City. This is a very young team, a very young roster. You watch them last night versus the Dallas Mavericks. They win again. Now they're the number 1 seed, obviously, in the Western Conference. Why are they this good? Are we ignoring this team? And do they have a legitimate shot at going deep in a playoff run being this young?
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason we're fixated so much on the play-in, especially this year, in the last couple of years, is especially in the West, right? It could be the Lakers and Warriors, Steph and LeBron, sitting there waiting for someone as a 7th and 8th seeds against perhaps two very young seeds at the top, because it might be Oklahoma and Minnesota in those top seeds. Oklahoma, which hasn't been to the playoffs in 4 years and hasn't made it with this young group. Minnesota, which has made the playoffs but hasn't won a series yet. So there's this axiom, Kirk, in the NBA, and I'm very much a believer in this, having covered the league for a long time. Generally speaking, youth does not win.
Right.
And generally speaking, you have to take your lumps. You make the playoffs, you get spanked by a more seasoned team, you come back the next year, maybe you win a round or two, and there's a progression to this, usually, but not always. And the Thunder and the Timberwolves are both really interesting in that they feel like complete teams, and they have the requisite depth. They've got the requisite combination of scoring punch and defensive tenacity and some great individual defenders. On paper, there's no reason to believe that the Thunder or Wolves are just kind of there just to make an appearance and gently step away to let LeBron and Steph have the stage again. But it will be one of the ultimate tests of this age-old NBA axiom about whether or not youth can win, especially when you go up against veterans. Because if it comes to pass that it's, say, Thunder and Wolves against Lakers and Warriors and whatever combination that might be, that's a phenomenal test. But I will just say, as the last thought on this is, absolutely positively, this is not some accident. The Thunder and the Wolves are legitimate. All the youth aside, and all my belief in age-old axioms aside, I do think both of these teams have great potential to make very deep playoff runs. And do they have enough to knock off the Nuggets in the end when that moment comes? That's the bigger question. But these teams are absolutely legit and incredibly talented. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is an MVP candidate right now.
Senior NBA writer for The Ringer, Howard Beck, joined the Rich Eisen Show. Kirk Morrison filling in for Rich. And look, I agree with you. And they're playing an exciting brand of basketball, watching the Thunder, especially watching Anthony Edwards, especially. I'm here in Los Angeles, and that last little West Coast swing that he had playing against the Lakers, playing against the Clippers. You know, he shows he's one of the more dominant players in the NBA. But, man, it's hard to ignore the 7, 8, and 9, and 10 seeds. Phoenix, Los Angeles, Dallas, and the Warriors. The crazy part is, Howard, 2 of those teams aren't going to make the playoffs just because of the way that the play-in is going to be. 2 of those teams will not be in the playoffs. If you had to guess right now, of those 4 teams currently as it sits in the play-in tournament, who should be worried that they probably won't make it?
Well, and just for mathematical purposes and just to make sure we're not overlooking anything, the Kings and Pelicans are on the bubble there, right? So one of those 2 teams could slip to the play-in, and they could be the ones to not make it also. I don't think that's going to happen.
Right.
I don't even know how to handicap it right now, Kirk. I mean, it's really
tough to figure it out.
Listen, like I've always said, never bet against LeBron.
Right.
I would generally say never bet against Steph. I am loath to be betting against Kevin Durant, especially when he's flanked by Devin Booker and Bradley Beal in Phoenix. There's a lot of veteran star power in that play-in range that, to your point, may not make the playoffs. And the idea of a playoffs bracket that doesn't include Durant or LeBron or Steph or 2 of the 3 of them is just unfathomable.
Right.
But we may be seeing that sometime soon. The team that I'd be a little worried about right now in that group is actually Dallas.
Right.
Luka got banged up the other night. We'll see how long he may be out. They, as good as they've been with him and Kyrie, they're a little inconsistent. I don't know that they have enough defensively to really hang with some of these other teams. And so, the Mavericks are a team that I think are vulnerable. And the Suns, their big 3 really hasn't played that much together since they brought them together a year ago or last summer,
right.
Durant obviously first and then Beal. But, injuries have disrupted their whole season and their ability to really establish that chemistry. And you see it sometimes show up in fourth quarters. They've been, I believe, statistically one of the worst or the worst fourth quarter teams in the league. And a lot of that has to do with, I think, the fact that it's a lot of my turn, your turn when you've got these 3 big stars who haven't played together enough to get a feel for how to execute sometimes. And yes, all 3 of those guys can manufacture points out of nothing, but you don't want to rely on that possession after possession in important playoff games. And so the Suns, I think, are a team that's a little vulnerable in that regard.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.